Hi, I'm Callie, and this week I have been focusing on finishing off my Summer Mixtape Readathon board. Yeah. So this was the final week of the Summer Mixtape Readathon, which was running from the 1st to the 14th of August. So this was kind of my last opportunity to tick off all of the boxes that I had left. And last week I managed to tick off 2 reading prompts and 2 self-care prompts, which left me with 2 self-care and 3 reading prompts. So let's just go through what I got through this week. The first book I finished was The Cats We Meet Along the Way by Nadia and Mikail, and this met the prompt of, it was a free prompt that reminded me of a summer bop, and the front cover of this book reminded me of The Venga Bus Is Coming by the Venga Boys. Because look at that bus and tell me that you do not think of that song. And I've no reason to doubt you, but it makes me think of that song. So that's why I picked this. And this book took place in Malaysia and the world was ending. Basically, something had happened and the world could not be saved and people had a finite amount of time left. And the protagonist, Aisha, decides that she wants to find her sister June, who left their family home a couple of years ago. So Aisha, her boyfriend, her mum, his parents and their cat all pile into a glorious camper van and drive across Malaysia to find June. And it was, despite the book taking place during, the end of the world, it was actually quite heartwarming in a lot of places and it was quite joyful. It was such a sweet story and it did cover quite a few quite difficult topics such as grief and estrangement, and I really enjoyed it. It was such a quick read. It was maybe about 210 or so pages and the font is quite large, so I just kind of sped through it a little bit. I picked up this book 100% because there was a cat on the front cover and it looked whimsical and joyful, and while there were some moments where I got a little bit choked up because, end of the world and grief, but I found it so hopeful, and it was really just quite a nice and enjoyable read. And I've never read anything by this author before. I believe this is their first novel. So pretty excited to see what they come up with next. This was a young adult book, but I do think that this could probably be middle grade as well. 2 of my stepkids are 11 and I could see them picking up this book and enjoying it. So if they want to borrow it, it's on the shelf. Next up was a self-care prompt, which was Summertime, where I read In a Sunny Spot. I read Love and Gelato by Jenna Welch. I started reading this book in Starbucks, which is sort of a sun trap, the one that I go to in town. So it kind of got me in the summery mood when I started reading it. And I totally get the irony of drinking a soy latte when it's really hot outside, but the heart wanted what the heart wanted, so that's what I ordered. This book also met the prompt of We're Going to Ibiza by the Venga Boys. Clearly my summer is all about the Venga Boys, and this book is about a 16-year-old whose mother passes away and her dying wish was for her daughter to go and stay with her mum's friend in Tuscany. While she's there, she receives a journal that was her mother's while she stayed there, and the journal sort of promises to answer the questions that Lena has about her mother, where Lena came from and why her mum wanted her to go to Tuscany. I absolutely loved the premise of this book. I mean, Lizzie McGuire film is an excellent film, so I very much grew up with the whole loving the girl going on a summer adventure kind of trope, but Lena was not a lovable protagonist, and she wasn't even, I don't think she was likable either, which again, it's not overly important to have a likable protagonist, but I feel like this kind of book, you needed to care about her journey, and ultimately I didn't overly care about Lena, and she made a lot of bad decisions. The thing that really confused me about this book was that Lena would read perhaps 2 or 3 journal entries at a time, put the book down, and then completely overanalyze the passages that she had read and try and work out what they meant. While I was reading that, I couldn't help but wonder why she didn't just keep reading the journal. It would answer her questions, but she didn't. And she made some terrible, terrible, stupid decisions. I didn't like her. And I was so annoyed because there was a point when somebody else read the journal from front to back and it took them 2 hours. So this entire book could have been over in the space of 2 hours if Lena just read the journal, but she didn't. Or if she just asked Howard, but she didn't. She just read a bit, decided to go all Miss Marple and go on basically a scavenger hunt around Italy while speaking no Italian. And it was an okay book, but it was one of those books that it's young adult, and I did feel like perhaps it was too young for me, or more, I'm too old for it. It's not the book's fault, it's my fault. It's the risk you take when you pick up a young adult book. But I do think that some of the issues I had with this book are not due to that. This book was so full of references to Italian cuisine, and I am lactose intolerant, so it is my great heartache that I cannot eat pistachio gelato. But it featured enough in this book that I'm willing to risk it all. It sounded amazing, and it was fun. It was a fun book, but there were so many unlikable characters who just didn't feel like characters. They just felt like caricatures. There were so many characters who were just stereotypes. I felt like it would have been better to have perhaps half the number of characters and have them actually have a personality. That's just, you know, that would be fun. And everybody lived in a bizarre form of accommodation. People living in castles, people living in gingerbread houses, people living in a graveyard. Nobody just lives in a flat. No? Okay. It was very much, it felt like a 2000s Disney film, which I would have loved. But as a book, it didn't do it for me. So, that's okay. Glad to finally get it off of my TBR. And I'm also I'm smug that I guessed the twist very early on. The next self-care non-reading prompt was movie night and to watch a summer movie. So of course I watched Grease 2, which is my favourite summer film. I love Grease 2. It is excellent. Michelle Pfeiffer is amazing. And I sing the songs from that film regularly. And I don't think a lot of my friends have seen that film because they do not sing along. So that was my summer flick. And then I had my final reading prompt. The prompt for Here Comes the Sun, which was a book featuring nature on the front cover. The book that I chose was The Daughter of Dr. Moreau by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. Now, I am not going to pretend that I do not love this author. I love her. I have read five books by this author so far, and I think the lowest rating I've given any of them is 4 stars. So when I pre-ordered this, which of course I did, I kind of knew I was almost guaranteed, hopefully, to have a good time. And I did have a good time. So yay, very happy about that. I do apologise, my voice is leaving me once again, so I'm going to be quick. This book was inspired, I'm sure you can maybe guess, by The Island of Dr. Moreau, which is a classic that I do enjoy. I do also really enjoy the Simpsons homage in Treehouse of Horrors, which I think is why I kept calling the hybrids manimals. They're not manimals, they're hybrids. But this book is inspired by that and takes place in 19th century Mexico during a time of conflict. Carlotta is the daughter of Dr. Moreau, and he sort of lives on this not quite an island, it's more of a peninsula where they're sort of cut off from everybody else, and he makes hybrids out of humans and animals. He's basically trying to play, you know, a creator, and it was such an interesting twist to add in the conflict with this and have an extra character of the daughter Carlotta. This book was told in dual perspective, which is something that I love in a book. So we got the perspective of Carlotta and of Loughton, who was her father's assistant, who was a bit down in his luck, which is what brought him to the peninsula. I loved the dual perspective because we would get a chapter from, say, Carlotta's point of view, and then it would end in a point, and the next chapter would quite often start at the same time as Carlotta's chapter had started. So we sort of get to see the two perspectives of the same moment in time, which I found to be really, really interesting. It was also set in parts, so you didn't have to sort of go through the whole Loughton settling into his new way of life on the island of Dr. Moreau, and that was quite good because it helped to sort of progress the story. Now I do feel like the pacing of this book was really slow, which is not something that I'm not usually a fan of slow-paced books, because I'm impatient and I just want to know what's going to happen. But I don't know, I feel it worked because it really helped me to sort of see in my mind the whole foreboding and sinister environment that they were in. I am familiar with the book that it was inspired by, but that did not give any spoilers at all because I did not see the twist coming until like a chapter before it came, and I can't gloat about that. No. I need to guess it earlier than that. So I really enjoyed that, and it was such a creepy and gothic read, and maybe I did. I hated almost every human character in this book. I loved the hybrids though. I absolutely loved them. I loved the way that they sort of rallied together and they had like a little family. Carlotta, oh, she was such a passive character, but the book was set in the 19th century and she was 20 and had never left her father's island. So I couldn't really expect her to sort of stand up for herself because it sort of felt like it was fitting with the time, if that makes sense. It fitted with the environment that she was in, but it annoyed me. I think I spent the majority of maybe part 2 and 3 willing the hybrids on to just eat everybody, just eat them, despite the fact that they didn't eat people. But I wanted that. I wanted that for them and for me. I hated so many of the people, awful people, and I think that was really important because it meant that I was just rooting for them to fail greatly. There was the ending I wanted to happen in this book. Now, historically, when I read a book by this author, there is the ending I want and there's the ending I deserve, if that makes sense. And this is the first time that I got the ending I wanted. So I'm very, very happy about that. And I just really enjoyed this book. It was so atmospheric and just a really enjoyable, creepy read. I really should have saved it for October, but I didn't want to wait, so I didn't. So that's me ticked off all of my prompts for Summer Mixtape Readathon, and I feel really good about that. I mean, these are the only books that I've read so far this month, so yeah, I'm feeling good about that. It's a slower reading month for me right now. That's okay, because I managed to tick off all of my boxes, and that's what I wanted to do. If you've read any of these books or any other summery kind of reads, do let me know in the comments, because apparently I read summer books now. Who knew? I still hate summer though. I'm now gonna go and pop the fan back on and try and cool down. Thanks for watching. Bye!